Hi everybody, welcome back to Summer Reading Nights. We're going to continue on to the next chapter called The Recipe. Okay, here we go. I hope you haven't forgotten that while all this was going on, I was still stuck behind the screen on my hands and knees with one eye glued to the crack. I don't know how long I had been there, but it seemed like forever. The worst part of it was not being able to cough or make a sound and knowing that if I did, I was as good as dead. And all the way through, I was living in constant terror that one of the witches in the back row was going to get a whiff of my presence through those special nose holes of hers. My only hope, as I saw it, was the fact that I hadn't washed for days. That and the never-ending excitement and clapping and shouting that was going on in the room. The witches were thinking of nothing except the Grand High Witch up there on the platform and her great plan for wiping out all of children of England. They certainly weren't sniffling around for a child in the room. In their wildest dreams, if witches have dreams, that would have never occurred to any of them. I kept still and prayed. The Grand High Witch's dreadful, gloating song was over now, and the audience was clapping madly and shouting, "Brilliant, sensational, marvelous! You are a genius, oh brainy one!" It was a thrilling invention, this delayed action mouse maker. It is a winner. And the beauty of it is that the teachers will be the ones who bump of all the stinking little children. It won't be us doing it. We shall never be caught. "Witches are never caught," snapped the Grand High Witch. "Attention now! I want everyone's attention. And I am about to be telling you what you must be do prepare for Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker." Suddenly there was a great gasp from the audience. This was followed by a hubbub of shrieking and yelling, and I saw many of the witches leaping to their feet and pointing at the platform and crying out, "Mice, mice, mice! She's done it to us! The brainy one has turned 2 children into mice, and there they are!" I looked toward the platform. The mice were there all right, 2 of them, running around near the Grand High Witch's skirts. But these were not field mice, or house mice, or wood mice, or harvest mice. They were white mice. I recognized them immediately as being my own little William and Mary. "Mice!" shouted the audience. "Our leader has made mice to appear out of nowhere. Get the mousetraps, fetch the cheese." I saw the Grand High Witch peering down at the floor, staring at with obvious puzzlement at Mary and William. She bent lower to get a closer look. Then she straightened up and shouted, "Quiet!" The audience became silent and sat down. "These mice are nothing to do with me. These mice are pet mice. These mice are quite obviously belonging to some rebellious little child in the hotel. A boy it will be for sure, a certainty, because girls are not keeping pet mice." "A boy?" cried the witches. "A filthy, smelly little boy. We'll swipe him, we'll swizzle him, we'll have his tripes for breakfast." "Silence!" shouted the Grand High Witch, raising her hands. "You know perfectly well you must do nothing to draw attention to yourselves while you are living in the hotel. Let us by all means get rid of this evil-smelling little squirt. But we must do quietly as possible, for all we not of all of us respectable ladies of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children." "What do you suggest then, O brainy ones?" they cried out. "How shall we dispose of this small pile of filth?" They're talking about me, I thought. These females are actually talking about how to kill me. I began to sweat. "Whoever it is, he is not important," announced the Grand High Witch. "Leave him alone. I shall smell him out and turn him into a mackerel and have him dished up for supper." "Bravo!" cried the witches. "Cut off his head and chop off his tail and fry him in hot butter." You can imagine that none of this was making me feel very comfortable. William and Mary were still running around on the platform, and I was the Grand High Witch's aim of swift running kick at the William. She caught him right at the point of her toe and sent him flying. She did the same to Mary. Her aim was extraordinary. She could have made a great football player. Both mice crashed against the wall, and for a few moments they lay stunned. Then they got to their feet and scampered away. "Attention again!" the Grand High Witch was shouting. "I will now give you a recipe for concocting Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Get out your pencils and paper." Handbags were already opened all over the room, and notebooks were fished out. "Oh, give us the recipe, oh brainy one, tell us the secret." "First," said the Grand High Witch, "I had to find something that would cause the children to become very small very quickly." "And what was that?" said the audience. "That part was simple. All you have to do was wishing to make a child very small to look at him through the wrong end of a telescope." "She's a wonder. Who else would have thought of such a thing like that?" "So you take the wrong end of the telescope and you boil it until it becomes soft." "And how long does that take?" they asked her. 24 hours of boiling. And while this is going on, you take exactly 45 brown mice and you chop their tails with a carving knife and you fry the tails in hair oil until they are nice and crisp. "What do we do with all the mice that have had their tails cut off?" "You simmer them in frog juice for an hour, but listen to me. So far I've only given you the easy part of the recipe. The real difficult part is to put something that will have a genuine delayed action result, something that can be eaten by children on a certain day, but which will not start working on them until 9 o'clock the next morning when they arrive at school." "What did you come up with, oh brainy one? Tell us the great secret." "The secret is an alarm clock." "An alarm clock? It's a stroke of genius." "Of course it is. You can set a 24-hour alarm clock today, and exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow it will go off." "But we will need 5 million alarm clocks," cried the audience. "We will need one for each child." "Idiots! You are not wanting a steak. You do not cook the whole cow. It is the same with alarm clocks. One clock will make enough for 1,000 children. Here is what you do. You set your alarm clock to go off at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then you roast it in the oven until it's crisp and tender. Are you writing this down?" We are, Your Grandness, we are." "Next, you take your boiled telescope and your fried mouse tails and your cooked mice and your roasted alarm clock, and all together you put them in the mixer. Then you mix them at full speed. This will give you a nice thick paste. While the mixer is still mixing, you must add it to the yolk of a gruntled egg." "A gruntled egg? We shall do that?" Underneath all the clamor that was going on, I heard one witch in the back row saying to her neighbor, "I'm getting a bit old to go bird's nesting. Those ruddy gruntles always nest very high up." "So you mix in an egg," the Grand High Witch went on, "and one after the other you will mix the following items: a claw of a crab cruncher, the beak of a blubbersnatch, the snout of a grubblesquirt, and the tongue of a catsringer. I trust you are not having any trouble finding those." "Not at all. We will dive for the blubbersnitch and trap the crab cruncher and shoot the grubblesquirt and catch the catspringer in his burrow." "Excellent! When you have mixed everything together in the mixer, you have the most marvelous green liquid. But one drop, just one teensy droplet of this liquid into a chocolate or a sweet, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, the child who ate it will turn into a mouse in 26 seconds. But one word of warning: never increase the dose. Never put more than 1 drop into each sweet or chocolate, and never give more than 1 sweet or chocolate to each child. An overdose of delayed action mouse maker will mess up the timing of the alarm clock and cause the child to turn into a mouse too early. A large overdose might even have an instant effect, and you wouldn't want that, would you? You wouldn't want the children turning into mice right away in the sweet shops. That would give the game away, so be very careful. Do not overdose." The Grand High Witch was starting to talk again. "I am now going to prove to you that this recipe is working to perfection. You understand, of course, that you can set the alarm clock to go off at any time you like. It does not have to be 9 o'clock. So yesterday I am personally preparing a small quantity of magic formula in order to give you a public demonstration. I am making one small change in recipe. Before I am roasting the alarm clock, I am setting it to go off not at 9 o'clock in the morning, but 3:30 in the afternoon. Which means 3:30 in the afternoon, and that is precisely 7 minutes time. The audience of witches was listening intently, sensing that something dramatic was about to happen. "So what I'm doing yesterday with this magic liquid," said the Grand High Witch. "I will tell you what I'm doing. I'm putting one droplet of it into a very squishy chocolate bar, and I'm going to give this bar to a repulsive, smelly little boy who is hanging around the lobby of a hotel." The Grand High Witch paused. The audience remained silent, waiting for her to go on. "I watched this repulsive little brute gobbling up the squishy bar and chocolate, and then he vanished. And then he finished. I said to him, 'Was that good?' He said it was great. So I said to him, 'Would you like more?' And he said, 'Yes.' So I said, 'I will give you 6 more chocolate bars like that if you will meet me in the ballroom of this hotel at 3:25 tomorrow afternoon.' 6 bars? I'll be there. You bet I'll be there," said the greedy little swine. "So the stage is set. The proof of the pudding is about to begin. Do not forget, before I'm roasting the alarm clock yesterday, I'm setting it for 3:30 today. It is now," and she looked at her watch, "it is now exactly 25 minutes past 3, and that nasty little stinker who will be turning into a mouse in 5 minutes' time should at this moment be standing outside the doors." And by gum, she was absolutely right. The boy, whoever he might be, was already rattling the door handle and banging on the doors with his fist. "Quick! Put on your wigs! Put on your gloves! Put on your shoes!" There was a great rustle and bustle, putting on wigs and gloves and shoes, and I saw the Grand High Witch herself reach for her face mask, put it on over the revolting face of hers. It was astonishing how that mask transferred her. All of a sudden, she became once again a rather pretty young lady. "Let me in!" cried the boy's voice from behind the doors. "Where are those chocolate bars you promised me? I'm here to collect. Dish them out." "He is not really smelly. He is also greedy," said the Grand High Witch. "Remove the chains from the doors and let him come in." The extraordinary thing about the mask was that its lips moved quite naturally when she spoke. You really couldn't see if it was a mask at all. One of the witches leaped to her feet and unfastened the chains. She opened the 2 huge doors, and then I heard her say, "Why, hello, little man, how lovely to see you. You have come for your chocolate bars, have you not? They're all ready for you. Do come in." A small boy wearing a white t-shirt and gray shorts and sneakers entered the room. I recognized him at once. He was called Bruno Jenkins, and he was staying at the hotel with his parents. I didn't care for him. He was one of those boys who are always eating something whenever you meet them. Meet him in the hotel lobby, and he was stuffing sponge cake into his mouth. Pass him in the corridor, and he was fishing potato chips out of the bag by the fistful. Catch sight of him at the hotel garden, he's wolfing a chocolate bar, and has 2 more sticking out of his trouser pocket. What's more, Bruno never stopped boasting about how his father made more money than my father and how they owned 3 cars. But worse than that, yesterday morning, I had found him kneeling on the flagstones of the hotel terrace with a magnifying glass in his hand. There were a column of ants marching across one of the flagstones, and Bruno Jenkins was focusing the sun through his magnifying glass and roasting the ants one by one. "I like watching them burn," he said. "That's horrible. Stop doing it." "Oh, let me see you stop me." At that point, I had pushed him with all my might, and he crashed sideways onto the flagstones. His magnifying glass had splintered into many pieces, and he had leaped up shrieking, "My father is going to get you for this." And then he had run off, presumably find his wealthy dad. And that was the last time I'd seen Bruno Jenkins until now. I doubted very much that he was about to be turned into a mouse, although I must confess that I was secretly hoping it might happen. Either way, I didn't envy him for being up there in front of all those witches. "Darling boy," said the Grand High Witch, "I have your chocolates all ready for you. Do you come up here first and say hello to all the lovely ladies?" Her voice was quite different now. It was soft and gentle and absolutely dripping with syrup. Bruno was looking a little bewildered, but he allowed himself to be led up onto the platform where he stood beside the Grand High Witch and said, "Okay, but where are my 6 chocolate bars?" I saw the witch, who had let him quietly putting the chain back on the door handles. Bruno didn't notice this. He was too busy asking for the chocolates. "The time is now 1 minute before 3:30, announced the Grand High Witch. "What the heck's going on? What is this? Give me my chocolate." 30 seconds to go, cried the Grand High Witch, gripping Bruno by the arm. Bruno shook himself clear and stared at her. She stared back at him, smiling with the lips of her mask. Every witch in the audience was staring at Bruno. 20 seconds! Give me the chocolate! Give me the chocolate and let me out of here. 15 seconds! Will one of you crazy punks tell me what this was all about? 10 seconds, the Grand High Witch said. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition. I could have sworn I heard an alarm clock ring, and I saw Bruno jump. He jumped as though someone had stuck a hairpin deep into his bottom and yelled, "Ow!" He jumped so high that he landed on a small table up there on the stage, and he started hopping all about on the table, waving his arms and yelling his head off. And then suddenly he became silent. His whole body stiffened. And we're going to stop here, and we'll continue in the next video.